day. Okay, there was a lot going on, and it was really exciting as far as I'm concerned. I think everybody was excited because Mark Agnifilo gave such a compelling closing argument. I mean, it really was theatrical. It was dramatic. Everything that I told you all earlier. And also, when Maureen Comey came back, now I have to give props where it's due. When Comey came back, she did a good rebuttal. Okay, she hit some key points. But, you know, I just got word from someone that was in the overflow room, in one of the overflow rooms, because they have about 4 of them. But this lady told me that everybody literally started clapping when the defense finished their closing arguments. They said they were clapping. There was people getting emotional. I got a little emotional. Some people were literally crying. Okay, it was just really so exciting to listen to on both sides, okay? Like I said, Agnifilo did a great job and really did an excellent job. But when Comey came back with a rebuttal, she did a good job too. Okay, so we're going to see how this all pans out Monday when the jurors are charged. Now, with that all being said, let's talk about what I didn't get to tell you all earlier. Okay, shout out to everybody in the chat. Okay, so last where I left off is where they said that Cassie was not kidnapped. Okay, she was not kidnapped, and basically said that she was supposed to stay at the London hotel. Hey, Nicole says, we love you, Queen, and I love you, all right, Black. Thank you, beloved. All right, thank you for your kind words and your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. Now, Agnifilo said that Cassie was not kidnapped, and that, in fact, when they wanted to take her to a hotel, she didn't want to go to a hotel. She wanted to go to Diddy's house, okay? And then they talked about how the prosecution had accused Diddy of witness tampering. Now, they're saying that when he was recording Jane Doe, when he recorded the conversation, basically telling her, I can't be on the phone and I can't be talking like this or whatever. And then he said, are you recording me? But he was actually recording her. Well, Comey said that that was witness tampering. That's how they were proving that. She said because basically the plaintiff was not supposed to be recording that. Thank you, Sheila, for your contribution to the channel, beloved. Peace, love, and blessings. I appreciate you. So he basically said that when he was talking to Jane Doe on the phone, he was talking to her but recording her at the same time. She said, who records people? The feds. The feds record people. And by the fact that he was doing it and then trying to, you know, basically do damage control and clean up things because he knew at that point that he was under investigation, she said that is the witness tampering. Now, with that all being said, I find it also interesting because, like I said, both sides were going back and forth. Now, the prosecution said it crosses the line when jurors should question why the government brought charges. Now, this was the point that Maureen Comey gave an objection to. She said that she didn't like the fact, she said this to the judge, the jurors were taken out of the room, and she stood up and said that she wanted to object to the fact that Mark Agnifilo literally told the jurors that Diddy was targeted by the government, okay? And that they should question why the charges were brought forth. Comey didn't like that. She said that was prejudicial and that he had no business, in fact, saying that to the jurors. They should not be trying to figure out why the government brought forth the charges. And she said that should, you know, basically not be allowed. It was improper. Now, Mark Agnifilo said that he didn't feel that way. And Man Scott says, love you. And I love you, right, Black, beloved. Thank you for your kind words and your contribution to the channel. Peace, love, and blessings. So they basically said that, you know, it was not improper. The defense said that he had a right to say that. And also, Shapiro stood up. And Shapiro agreed with Agnifilo, and she told the judge, listen, she said he has a right to do that because what he was basically doing by saying that, he was trying to let them know that you should be asking yourselves, how are these charges credible? You know, you should be asking yourself why these things were brought forward or whatever. And she said he absolutely had a right to say so. But the judge didn't really agree. He said that he should have worded it differently if he wanted to say something like that, and that he would make sure that when he gives the jurors the instructions, then he will tell them not to pay attention to that, basically. Now, then, why the government, they talked about why the government brought the charges. They said the video, Agnifilo said the video of Diddy beating Cassie, said that was basically a misdemeanor, and said the government has charged him with arson, kidnapping, and I'm allowed to, and this is what Agnifilo said also when Comey complained. He said, I'm allowed to be sarcastic. That's what he said. He said, I'm allowed to be sarcastic. I'm sorry, y'all. We have a lot of noise out here. This is New York. Y'all know how they get down out here. At the end of the day, it's rush hour traffic, bumper to bumper, and people are mad and tired and ready to get home. And I'm one of them. Now, I'm not mad, but I am ready to get home. So with that all being said, the judge says Agnifilo cannot instruct jurors, and they will only be instructed by him, and that's the judge. Okay? And that's when, huh?
Can you tell them how you felt about today and Mark, how he did on this big
Oh
podcast?
yes, Mark Agnifilo did excellent. He did an amazing job. It was very high energy. He brought home some very good points. And I think that Comey was kind of bothered by that. I think she got a little nervous, and that's why she complained and basically said that, you know, he was doing too much. She said that he should not have been allowed to tell the jurors they should question why the charges were brought, and he shouldn't have said that Diddy was targeted by the government. But I thought it was real interesting. They said some people in the overflow room were clapping when the defense finished, and then one lady told me that people were crying. It was very emotional. Very emotional. It was much better than the one we got yesterday from the prosecution. Now, I will give Comey her credit. When she came back from the rebuttal, she did do a good job, but I don't think it was better than what Agnifilo did.
Do you feel like he was corny?
Agnifilo? Oh, no, absolutely not.
Do you think he related to the jurors? You were in the courtroom. What did you see from the jurors?
What I saw from the jurors is they were very engaged. They were paying attention to what he was doing. They were excited. I mean, they were sitting up out of their seats. My thing is yesterday, it was like a snooze fest. They just didn't look like they were engaged because I think that it was too much of going over the same text message and charts. They were bored. I know I was. And I think that they just didn't look so interested. But when Agnifilo was up there, and I think that was very strategic to get Agnifilo to do the closing arguments because he is a native New Yorker and they resonated with him and what he was saying.
Yes, you've been saying that since day one.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes,
how did we find you?
Oh, I'm the original Queen Ahmadiyya Shakur show. Thank you. And I watch Popcorn Planet.
Oh, you do?
I watch Popcorn Planet, by the way. Shout out to Popcorn Planet. All right. Okay, so with that all being said, like I said, it was really amazing to watch. I am so glad that I came here. And I want to thank all of you who have contributed to the channel, for those of you who have sent me cash apps, and that you continue to contribute. I appreciate you guys because without you, hey, I might not have made it here. So I really love you guys for that because this is historic. Okay, so now let's get back into these receipts. So the judge basically told Mr. Agnifilo that, you know, he was the one, the judge is the one that's going to give them the instructions. Hey, Teray, how you doing? That was Teray, you guys. So Shapiro says that the government misstated. Now this is where I sat up and paid attention because Shapiro stood up. I want you all to pay attention because Diddy really has a dream team. These defense attorneys know what they're doing. They each play an integral part, and they all are very skilled at their knowledge of the law and being able to call out things really quickly. So when they were complaining, the prosecution that is, Shapiro stood up and she said, Your Honor, she said yesterday the government misstated the law. She said they misstated the law and said there were guns at the freak-offs. Now that was an outright lie. She said they said there were guns at the freak-offs. And that people are making vigorous arguments on both sides, is what she said. She said no one's doing anything on purpose or intentionally. No one's trying to be inappropriate or say things that are not proper. But basically, she's like, she said, if you're going to call out Mr. Agnifilo, then you need to call them out. And the judge said, wait a minute. That's not what happened. I didn't call them out. Miss Comey called them out. Okay? So I'm telling y'all, everybody was getting in on it. Everybody seemed like they had the smoke. Everybody wanted the smoke. Even the judge had the smoke. I want y'all to pay attention. Oh, and by the way, I also got it on a very reliable source that Mr. Fahim Muhammad, Diddy's former chief of security, the one that I told you I was wondering where he was, why we hadn't seen or heard from him since the trial or since the indictment. Well, they told me that he was in one of the overflow rooms. Yeah, they said Fahim was in the overflow room. Now, I can't substantiate it because I didn't literally see him, but the person that told me is very reliable. Gerald, come over here and tell me what you think and shout out your stuff. Hold on, you guys. Tell them where you're from.
I'm from Alabama, but I live in North Carolina, and I think Diddy is being done dirty. And
tell them about the North Carolina people you get done.
Oh, yeah, so basically, let me just say, I just feel like with this situation that's going on, We all have been in relationships with people and we don't agree with what they do, but we all have left. And that's because some of us have not been as powerful, as rich or as powerful as Diddy has been. You get what I'm saying? So in this situation, instead of them just going on with their life, oh, I'm not okay, I don't like the freak offs and stuff, leave. Why y'all staying? Leave, get up out of there. And then, why y'all won't go pull them IP addresses from OnlyFans? Why y'all won't go do that? You know what I'm saying? Because that's what everybody doing. If you go on Twitter, all them hoes, all they do is fly each other out of town, pay. They all hoes, that's all what they do. This lady right here, she is a good commentator, and she know her stuff.
Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Now, shout out to the North Carolina Beat.
Oh, yeah, shout out to the North Carolina Beat. You can follow me everywhere. The North Carolina Beat. Just search it, Google me. I'm everywhere. Everybody know me.
All right.
All right,
Thank you.
See you Monday.
All right. So with that all being said, you all heard it, okay? This is what the people are saying, boots on the ground, people that are here. Everybody was so excited. Like I said, it was absolutely amazing. And I am so glad to be here for this experience. Okay, but let me continue. So now, Shapiro basically said that everybody's giving vigorous arguments. Nobody's trying to do anything improper on purpose. Okay, sometimes you might slip up. Just like she said they slipped up yesterday and actually misstated the law and then said that there were guns at the freak-offs. Nobody ever said anything about guns at the freak-offs. I want y'all to pay attention. That was an outright lie, but let me continue. So with that being said, they talked about the forced labor, okay? They talked about the forced labor. They said you wouldn't think forced labor when they talked about Mia, right? They said Mia was supposed to have been forced labor, but basically, Angela says, great job with trial updates. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Thank you for your contribution. Now, they said that Mia seemed to have expressed love for Mr. Combs. They said that she was bubbly, outspoken. She was happy, okay? And then, remember, she said that Diddy raped her on the stand. That's what she testified to. Now, Agnifilo said that that was just a lie, and that in fact, if he raped her, then why when her and Diddy got into it, did Diddy say, I'm gonna tell Cassie? He said, yeah, he threatened to tell Cassie because her and Cassie were supposed to be friends and she was messing with Diddy behind Cassie's back. He said that it was absolutely consensual. Now, I'm telling y'all like this. I said the same thing when I heard her testimony. I said, well, it sounds to me like she was messing around with Diddy behind his back. I mean, I wasn't the only one that said that. Several people said that around me. And so that's what we all got from it. So he was just reiterating what we were already thinking as far as I'm concerned. So then, okay, so then they talked about Cassie and Mia being friends. And Mia didn't want Cassie to know. I know it was absolutely possible. They said they know it was absolutely impossible that she was telling the truth about what she said. And then they talked about, you know, the video that she did. Now, they didn't re-show it because, again, Agnifilo wasn't trying to bore us by putting up the same exhibits that we had already seen. That's what the prosecution kept doing. And I think that's kind of what made them fall flat and fall short, because it kept showing things that people had already seen like at least 3 or 4 times at that point, and nobody was really interested. So Agnifilo said, I'm not going to show you all the video. I'm sure you remember it. He said on the video for his birthday, she talked about how she loved him. He was so great. He was amazing. And she said all these good things about him. He said she was in love with him, okay? And that's what it sounded like to us too when we heard that video or saw the video. And then they talked about, if you remember, one of the assistants said that when they were out of the country, they had picked up an 8-ball for a rapper. Well, Agnifilo brought that back up. He said the person that did that, they weren't told to do that by Diddy. And in fact, Diddy didn't know anything about it. And in fact, they didn't even want Diddy to find out when they bought that 8-ball. But y'all remember, they said they bought it for Nelly. Okay, not to be calling Nelly out, but that's what they said. Now, Agnifilo didn't say his name today, but that's what the person said on the stand, that they had bought it for Nelly. Okay, so please pay attention. And then here's the thing. Agnifilo pulls out this big picture. It's a big, huge picture with all of Diddy's people on it that worked for him. And Diddy's sitting in the middle. Everybody is smiling. It looked like a family picture or a very happy group picture. And Agnifilo said, look at this picture. And Westmoreland was holding it, right? And he said, look at this picture. He said, this is a RICO organization. This is what Agnifilo said. He's pointing to the picture, and he's like, does this look like a RICO organization? What does this look like? Well, to us, it looked like family. It looked like people who are happy to be together. It looked like a picture you would take at a family reunion or something like that. And it definitely didn't look like anybody that was involved in a RICO organization. And then he started referring to KK and Cassie and Jane Doe as co-conspirators. So he was like, do these sound like people that are involved in a RICO? Hold on, I'll get to that part because I don't want to misquote. So here's the thing. He said there was a point in time where Mia was talking about deleting herself, where she was talking about taking her life because she was so depressed when she was no longer working for Diddy. She said, I'm going to kill myself. Okay? And then then she hung up the phone. KK's calling her back, and KK's like, what are you doing? So he says, now when Agnifilo is telling this part of the story, he says, RICO co-conspirator, RICO, and he was being sarcastic. I want y'all to pay attention. He said, RICO co-conspirator Mia called KK and said she was going to take herself out. Then RICO co-conspirator KK calls Mia and said, that's not funny. Answer the phone. You can't say something like that and then you don't answer your phone. And it was just crazy because he kept calling them like co-conspirators or implying that they were like they were some crime mob people, like what the prosecution was labeling them as. And here's another thing. Now, when he spoke about why there were no co-conspirators, Mark Agnifilo brought that up too, because he said they have charged Diddy with not just a RICO, but a RICO conspiracy. He said, who are the conspirators? Where are the rest of them? He said, basically, if it was a conspiracy, a RICO conspiracy, where are his co-conspirators? So then Comey got up, and Comey says, well, at the end of the day, he didn't bring anybody, he didn't bring forth any witnesses. He could have brought them just as well as they could have. But Comey said that KK and D-Rock were playing both sides. That's what they were doing. They were doing what Diddy wanted them to do, but at the same time, they were also helping Cassie. So she said that they were playing both sides. And I guess that is why the prosecution never called on them as witnesses, but why weren't they ever indicted as co-conspirators? That's the question. If they weren't called on as witnesses, why weren't they indicted as co-conspirators? Okay? That's what inquiry minds want to know. I just find it all interesting. But when I tell you he was going in, now, then he talked about Cassie. Well, he also talked about this incident that happened August of 2018. This is when Diddy sent a text to Cassie that said, I know I look bad to you. Now, this is what, hey, how you doing, beloved? Thank you. Oh, you too. You leaving? Okay, I'll be here for probably another week. All right, I'll see you on YouTube, though. Twitch, that's right. Okay, I got you. Okay, so he says, I know I look bad to you. I could tell I didn't turn you on yesterday, but I'm about to get my ish together. Now, I don't want to see I don't want to see anybody else. So they were basically saying, the prosecution that is, was saying that this was like an admission that Diddy had done something nefarious. Whereas Mark Agnifilo was saying, no, that's not what that was. That doesn't mean that he had done anything wrong or whatever. That just means that he was trying to work things out, basically. And also, Agnifilo talked about how Cassie didn't get the attention that she needed, and how Capricorn was right about her not being very talented. He said, now, we can't listen to everything that Capricorn said, but when she said that Cassie was no Beyonce, he said, well, she was right about that. And he said that, Cassie tried to paint the picture that Diddy didn't really help further her career. But basically, he said when she first came out, she was hot. She had a movie. He said she was doing shows and everything. He said the fact that she crashed and burned fell on her. She both She rose and fell by her own self. Not that Diddy had anything to do with it, is what he said. And then also he brought up something that I told you all. Remember, you heard it here first. I asked you all so many months ago. I said, why did Cassie keep those SEX videos? Remember, she had the 9 videos on her devices and she gave them to the feds. Do you all remember that I asked you, why would she keep them? Were they memoirs? I would think that if something traumatized me so bad, I would not want to keep it in my presence. I would not want to own it. I would want to destroy it. But Agnifilo brought that up. And I just want y'all to pay attention, because everything I have been telling you all about the prior bad acts, the motions filed in Lemonade, you know how some people are not taking accountability, about the videos and all of that. Everything that I've been telling y'all, Agnifilo said in his closing. I want y'all to pay attention. And remember, when I did the little impression and I told you all how he would do his closing argument, okay, I'm just saying I was very point on. I was very spot on. So with that all been said, he said that Mr. Combs didn't hold her back. Her career didn't take off after she left Bad Boys. He said she rose and fell on her own. Yes, he was violent at times. She spent most of her time on jealousy and complaining about other women. Mr. Combs' other women. Now, she kept the videos on her device and then said that the device didn't work. He said Cassie lied about that. When she gave her devices to the feds, and they wondered why she had those videos still on there, she said, oh, they don't work anyway. But the expert, the forensic expert who checked the devices, he said they absolutely did work. So she was lying. So the question becomes, why did she keep those videos? He said there was at least 6 of them. Why did she keep those videos on her that were on her devices? Why did she keep those for years? That's what people should be asking themselves. I just have to wonder, because like I said, I would think that she would be traumatized from all the things that she alleged happened to her. I'm not saying they didn't happen to her, but I just wonder, why would you keep those videos? That would be something that would, you know, I would feel would re-traumatize a victim. And they said that they absolutely worked fine. So that's interesting. She kept the videos. I'm sorry, no, she had 9 videos, but she kept the videos for 6 years, is what Agnifilo said. She kept him for 6 years. Now, the S-worker thought he was her specialty. And he said that was so naive, because one of the S-workers was saying that he thought Cassie cared about him or whatever. And Agnifilo said he'd never known an escort could be so naive. September of 2023, there was jealousy on the yachts. Okay, they had an incident on the yacht, and they got a text from Cowboys to Angels. Now, this was with Jane. When Jane didn't like the guys, and he brought that up too. He said that basically he was trying to prove that she wasn't coerced, she wasn't forced, that she did these things because that's what she wanted to do. Because he said whenever there was a male escort that she didn't want to have relations with, that person had to go. That wasn't just one time, but that was any time she complained. He said that person had to go. And then here's a text message he showed from Jane Doe, which we had seen this before, but it said, Jane sent a text to Cowboys and Angels, and or Cowboys for Angels, that said payment sent to Venmo. Here's the receipt. You can forward it to her for her bum ass cowboy. Okay, that's what Jane said, for her bum ass cowboy. You can text her the receipt. We already paid it through Venmo. Basically saying, yeah, we didn't like it. I didn't want him. I didn't think he was good, attractive. He wasn't my type. I didn't do anything with him, but we still sent y'all the money. So there you go. He was a bum. So that just basically proved what he was saying. That when she didn't want to do anything with these dudes, they would leave. And then he talked about how she had these relations with, what's the guy's name? Cabral and Jules, 2 of her favorites. And then he talked about how something had happened with Anton in Vegas. This was January of 2024. Something else happened with Anton in Vegas. Now, this is when they brought up the racketeering and conspiracy charge. They said KK gets off, D-Rock, no co-conspirators and no evidence of a RICO conspiracy. That's what Agnifilo said. He said KK got off, D-Rock got off, and there's no co-conspirators, and there's no evidence of a RICO conspiracy. He said there were a number of things that are not charged. Well, first of all, we know that the firearms were not charged. He also said that thing about Kerry Morgan getting hit with the hammer, getting hit with the wooden hanger, that wasn't charged either. And then he brought up who told them to put the golden showers on Cassie. Now, remember, in the beginning of the case, when Cassie was up there on the stand, Comey, or somebody on the prosecution, I think it was Comey. Now, I wasn't here at that time. I was still at home getting updates. But Comey basically said, you're going to hear how Mr. Combs would make people, put golden showers in Cassie's mouth. Remember that? Well, Agnifilo reminded the court today that sometimes the defendant told the S workers, basically said Cassie asked them to put the golden showers on her. Do you remember they said one of the S workers said that on the stand? Do you all remember that? The S worker said when asked, who told you to do that to Cassie? And he said she did. So he brought that back up. Now, when the rebuttal came, okay, sweetie. See you later. Okay, so she says, explain away. This is what Comey said when she got up there for the rebuttal. Now, like I said, she did a good job on that rebuttal. She said, explain away the devastating evidence that Ms. Slavic walked us through yesterday. He wouldn't take no for an answer. She said Diddy wouldn't take no for an answer. The burden of proof rests on the government, and we have more than met that requirement. She said they have met their burden of proof. Now, she said, don't forget the SEX, okay? Don't forget that, committing those crimes. And he couldn't have done this without an entire criminal enterprise, she says. She says, remember, this is a man who can't open a bottle of water by himself. And we're supposed to think that he committed all these acts by himself. He had a whole criminal enterprise, is what Comey said. And she said, Mr. Agnifilo tried to make it seem as though Diddy wasn't paying these S workers, these escorts, for SEX. She said, of course he was. She said, Mr. Agnifilo didn't show you. Now, I want y'all to pay attention, because here's the thing. Comey, basically, in my opinion, when she came for the rebuttal, she got dramatic like Agnifilo. I noticed that. She also got dramatic, okay? So she did a better job than Slavic did on yesterday. Please pay attention. Now, with that all been said, she says that he wants us to think, Mr. Agnifilo wants us to think that Diddy wasn't paying these escorts for SEX. She said, but if you remember, there was a text message, and Agnifilo's not going to show you that text message. She says, where he talked about he didn't pay the guy. Remember when the guy said Diddy shorted him $600, and the woman called Diddy, the owner of Cowboys for Angels, called Diddy or texted him about it, and Diddy said he couldn't even perform. He couldn't even perform. He's lucky he got anything. So she said that's proof right there that he was paying for SEX. Because the man couldn't perform SEX, he didn't pay him all the money. And then she said, and let's not forget that they already testified to that on the stand. Okay, that if they didn't do what they were supposed to do, finish the job, then they didn't get all of the money. She talked about how Daniel Phillip said what he got paid for was he was paid for SEX. Sheree Hayes, aka the Punisher, he said he got paid $500 when there was no SEX, but when he did SEX and finished the job, he got thousands. She said that's proof that he was paying them for SEX. They have to label, she said they don't have to label themselves as prostitutes to be basically, someone who was given money for SEX. They don't have to call themselves that. And also, they don't have to even know that they're being treated as prostitutes. It doesn't matter what Jules or Cabral thought about a masked, masturbating with an M celebrity. Ha! That's what she called Diddy. She called Diddy a masked, masturbating with an M celebrity. It doesn't matter what they thought about him. He told Cassie to be sure that none of the escorts were undercover cops. She said, why would he want her to vet them and see that? And he even asked one of them, "Are you a cop?" She said that's proof that he knew that he was doing something illegal. That's proof that he knew that he was doing something he had no business doing. That's proof that he was absolutely paying them for sex. Because otherwise, she said, why would he have been asking if they were cops and telling Cassie to make sure that none of them were undercover cops? Oh, this was a whole lot. I just want y'all to pay attention. Now, she said the defendant is guilty, therefore, the defendant is guilty of counts 3 and 5. She said, now let's talk about the racketeering. They were loyal to him for years, that being his employees. They had 2 goals, loyalty and to do what the defendant wanted. KK and D-Rock maybe didn't agree with everything that the defendant did, but they certainly played both sides. They used money from the companies to further the enterprise. The kidnapping of Capricorn, they said there's proof that Capricorn was kidnapped. Agnifilo said that she wasn't, and that she told lies about mountain lions, talking to Lauren London on the phone and all of that. But Comey came back and said, wait a minute here. She was kidnapped, and Kid Cudi confirmed it. She said Kid Cudi said that he heard her say on the phone she was forced to go there. She said it doesn't matter if there was a gun or not. You don't need a gun to force someone. Because remember, Agnifilo said there was no gun, that Capricorn just lied and said there was a gun, so she could act as though she went there against her will because she wanted to try to prove her loyalty to Cassie. But Comey says, even if there was no gun, the confirmation came from the phone call where she said that she was forced to be there. She says Mr. Agnifilo said that Sean Combs is a hands and fists guy. This is where she went in on Diddy. I want y'all to pay attention. She said, Mr. Agnifilo said Sean Combs is a hands and fists guy. She said, oh yeah, he is, with women who are half his size. She said, but with a man, he has to bring a gun. Please pay attention. She went in. She said, with a man, he has to bring a gun. She said, think about Suge Knights. Because remember, they said Diddy and one of his friends or guards came home to get those guns. That's what one of the assistants testified to. It was either David James or George Kaplan. I can't remember which. But they said that I think it was David James. But they said that Diddy came home and got guns and went looking for Suge Knight. So she said that when it's a man, oh, he wants to run and get guns. She was trying to call Diddy the cowardly lion. Okay, please pay attention. She said, but when it's a woman half his size, then he's hands and fists, like Agnifilo says. Then she talked about the bribery, because Agnifilo said there was no bribery. But she said Eddie Garcia was contractually bound to not speak on the incident when Diddy gave him money for that video to quietly go away. Sean Combs was worried about law enforcement when he was bribing Eddie Garcia. And then she talked about him recording the conversation. She said plaintiff can't tap phones. He was recording that phone call. Who taps the phones? The feds, law enforcement. Sean Combs can't even open his own bottle of water, let alone run a criminal enterprise. So with that all been said, like I told you guys, and here's another thing she said. She said that the video where he was beating Cassie, she said Agnifilo wants us to think that it wasn't about a freak-off, that it was about a cell phone. She said, but you know it was about a freak-off because when Mr. Combs, the defendant, came out there in the hallway, he was still wearing a towel. He didn't even have clothes on. She said, and then the S worker was still in the room. It was about a freak-off, and he was mad because Cassie didn't want to finish. She said the violence, there was also violence away from the freak-offs, away from the hotels, and that was all about keeping Cassie obedient and keeping her under control. Said that he had trained her to follow his orders. She said he was giving out ecstasy like candy. She said it's time for him to pay. These were her final words before we left. She said it's time for him to pay. Find him guilty. All right? Find him guilty. With that all been said, I have to go. They're running us out of here, you guys. So listen. Okay? So listen. I love you all to life. Make sure you like and share this video. Okay, I'm gonna do another live tomorrow. Listen, each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beautiful beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Enjoy your strong end, not the weak end, keeping you in a weakened state of mind. And thanks everyone for the contributions. I love you all to life.